Hello!
Welcome back at the second season of our next show. So great to see all of you here again. My name is Matthias Schrader, and I'm very grateful to be back here with you and with my favorite next show team. Our keynote in residency, David Mattin from London.
Hi, everyone.
And our program curator and long-term moderator, Monique van Dusseldorp from Amsterdam.
Hello, hello, hello.
And I'm super happy to see all of you here watching us today. And as you might have noticed, we took a little break during summer. And also COVID took a little break, which was nice. So please let us know how you spent your summer and also how you feel now that winter is coming. David, Monique, how did you spend your summer and COVID break?
I took up running again, so I'm now extremely fit. I spent a lot of time writing my newsletter, and just last week in the UK we celebrated Guy Fawkes Night, so we all gathered in our individual gardens because no one's allowed to be together, and set off fireworks in a very safe way. So that's what I've been doing.
How about you, Monique?
Walking. I've been doing so many walks. I think walking is the new thing, you know. Everybody's walking outside. I love it. Very good. Yeah, good for me. I have been watching any online event I could find. I mean, I really immersed myself in online events. So that's what I did this summer and spring and fall, actually, to be honest.
And what did you find out about events?
Okay, now. Bear with me, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of what I found out about online events. So here we go. As said, hanging around online events has been my go-to vice this year. You know, anytime I have a deadline or have something to do or have to do my books clear up, let's watch an online event because that's work. And Martin Rekke of Next, you know, early on published a really interesting article about the unbundling of events. You know, different event functions have already been taken over by LinkedIn for business networking and YouTube for finding lectures and Twitter to, you know, it's a huge social space. But of course, then suddenly in February, March, nobody could get together. And everybody that had already planned an event decided, okay, let's try and do this online. And the development of what has been happening from, okay, we have an event and we're going to try to do it online. And it's basically a stream and we're trying to imitate the space that we would normally have it in. All these things that don't really work, that Ben Sauer also described, you know, it's a problem of trying to imitate something that's already gone. Things developed really fast, and all the platforms as well that you can host events on have developed. I mean, I don't know if you read it, but Hopin was just valued at 1.7 billion for a platform with a pretty standard set of event features, nothing special even. And LinkedIn has started live streaming, and I'm sure they will do events, and Zoom and Teams and Google Meet, and everybody's building things around it. So there's a lot of things happening in platforms. But what is more interesting, of course, is what is actually new. And what is new in the event industry online, if you can call it an industry, I think will come from all kinds of different industries. Because basically everything happening online is a digital event. And, you know, our kind of event where we go and listen to interesting talks, these sort of get translated into TV shows. So I think there's a lot to learn from what's happening in the TV industry. And Eurosport, for instance, they had interviews on screen with somebody else in the studio, sort of a holographic imitation and, you know, interaction between people that were dispersed across the globe. Or Snapchat, they did an online event, a summit it was really a media production show with all kinds of, you know, the rhythms and the expertise and the visuals of Hollywood, TV, and you know, all that combined. So that will happen to the event industry. And then, of course, there's the world of games. Games are super interesting because gamers are used to being together online in the digital space and have been for a long time. And they're there, you know, they're there together. It's not just about consuming something, learning something. No, they're cooperating, they're gaming, they're battling, they're chatting. It's a social space. So if you look at the entertainment industry, they are now discovering the games world. So we had Travis Scott doing a big show in Fortnite, and now Lil Nas X is doing a concert in Roblox. Roblox, you know, the children's game where you block a whole world, make a whole world. Or look at a company like Wave, which is building an online venue for entertainment with Justin Bieber and Weeknd. And I think some of those qualities and spaces will very quickly transfer to the event space as well. So entertainment, gaming, and then of course there's this unbundling, taking all the elements of events apart. You really see a really quick unbundling of event programs. I mean, if you go to a conference, you want more than one speaker, but online, maybe just one will do. So just connecting one speaker to an audience. And to give you an example, there's a Dutch author, many of you will know, Rutger Bregman, best-selling author, did a few great books, and he did a local theater tour in the Netherlands. So he goes to theaters and then talks to people and talks about his book. And, he got 16 theaters, 9,000 people, quite good. And then he did a last live stream performance. And he sold 18,000 tickets, Dutch tickets, for a lecture for €7.50. I mean, why would the guy go to a conference if he can reach everybody and just sell small tickets? And also, if you can access anybody on the world, take Esther Perel. She's world famous therapist and writer, author. She's now selling access to 3 sessions on death, sex, and money for $75. So suddenly, this connection directly from the author, the storyteller, to the audience is a gig world in itself. You don't need a conference. I also want to point out that in the field of online events, sometimes the bundle stays together, but then you have this amazing possibility to have speakers dial in from all across the world and to have delegates from all across the world. I hosted a Partos Innovation Festival, was about development aid and digital services, and we had 30 people from Africa and Southeast Asia call in to show what they had done digitally. This would never have been possible if you had to fly them all in. So there's a lot of good things happening. Now, 3 more things I want to mention. The social aspects of conferences, just talking to people and finding your peers and finding your people, which is, I always feel that you walk into a conference. For instance, I do a lot of work in the tech space. I walk into a developer conference. You walk in and you look around and you realize these people belong together. I mean, they find their people at the event. That's at least half of the reason why you go to an event. I think there's a lot of there are smaller events taking place online that do that. I mean, to give you one example, that I visited this Office Hours is a Zoom group with a daily discussion of all things video related, hosted by Alex Lindsay, who's a computer graphics and video production specialist. These are really tech guys into video. They come together every day. Everybody can ask questions. They'll answer them. But it is like a group of friends. It's in the middle between going to the bar after the sessions and, being in a team, and there's a lot of things happening. And, I know I have to round up, but take the VR chat room built by Cooper Tom. If you haven't seen that one, go there and have a look. These are just guys that chat in VR, and he made a background of the 4 Seasons press conference site, and it's very funny. But the way people get together online is becoming so much more social now that everybody's online all the time and they find each other. Now, last but not least, I think the world of education is actually also super interesting, because teachers and professors know how to handle attention spans, and they start to use a variety of tools as well. And of course, once you decide to learn something online, why not learn from the very, very best in this? So there's, projects like Masterclass, and something of the world of education and the expertise of education is flowing into the online event space as well. And then last but not least, what is an event? An event can be something completely different. I mean, Tim's listening party is an event. It's every evening, they put on a record and people follow the Twitter stream of the people that made that record. Every evening, same time, it's a gig. It's a gig for the people involved in this event, for everybody listening. And what is it? It's sound plus Twitter. So these events are breaking apart as well in completely different formats. Anyway, that's what we did with the next conference as well, after all. We didn't have the conference. We didn't come together in Hamburg, unfortunately, in September. But we have the next show and we have a book. So an event can also be a book. Ina!
It's a little bit less exciting to have this book in your hand.
But it's very exciting. My name is in it. It's super exciting.
It is exciting, but it's a bit less exciting for me than to stand on this huge stage. David and Monique, as Monique mentioned, also contributed to the book. It is called The Great Redesign and was published this week, and this is why we are excited for sure. If you want to win a copy, please stay until the end of the show and we tell you how. I think it's a great collection of 20 authors who share their insights from various backgrounds. They talk about the impact of the current situation on the years to come, but also show other important factors that will shape our futures, the way we work, live, and innovate. Some of the book's authors, like Payal Arora or Ben Evans, were already here in this show to share their views. Others, we will be our guests in this season, like venture capitalist and book author Albert Wenger, the sharp analyst Azim Azar, or new work expert Letitia Vito. So they all be here on this stage at some point in the next months. David will tell us a little bit more about the Great Redesign in a bit, but we also have a special guest today, Next founder and one of the book's co-editors, Matthias Schrader. We're looking forward to our conversation with him to discuss why he thinks we are living in the new never normal. So now I will join you in the chat and leave this stage to Monique, David, and Matthias. If you have any questions or thoughts, please feel free to share them with us, and I'll do my best to forward them to David. So see you in a bit, and over to you, David.
I have a thought to share as well. My thought is a little bit longer this week because it falls to me to introduce really the theme of this season of What's Next. I'm talking about the big idea that is going to run through the entire season, and it can be summed up in two words that you've already heard: the Great Redesign. But what do I mean? What do we mean by the Great Redesign? Well, back when the pandemic struck early in the year, we asked ourselves if this moment would be a pause or a great reset. If you can cast your mind back that long, it feels a long time ago. And what did we mean by that? We meant, is this a pause before the restart of life, the restart of culture, the restart of business, of everything as usual? Or is it going to be a massive reset that's going to bring huge change? Now, that is a big question. And of course, we still don't know the answer. But here's the thing. What if pause or reset is not the best framework to understand this moment? What if there's a better way of thinking about it? Well, we think there is. And in this season, we're going to argue that there is a better way to think about it. What if this moment is not a pause or a reset, but rather the chance for a great redesign? Now, that can sound like a subtle shift in thinking, but it's also a huge shift. Because when you think about a redesign, you know that that's not a passive process. A redesign is something we have to do, and it's something we have to do together. So that's a framework that immediately forces us to ask, what should we be doing now to build the world we want? Like, we know tons of spheres of human life are up in the air right now. We've all read and we've heard and we've listened so much about it. Education, travel, work, retail, cities, it's all up in the air. So what needs to be done and how can we do it? What does it mean for you? What does it mean for your business? What does it mean for your individual career, your journey? These are the kinds of questions we're going to be looking at this season, and we have a lot of thinking to share. As Ina said, our theme takes its name from a book, from this book. And don't forget, at the end of the show, you can win a free copy, so hang around for that. The Great Redesign. And we're going to be hearing, as you've already heard, from some of the authors in this book and their thinking on what we need to do to create the great redesign that we need. We're going to hear from the newsletter writer Azim Azhar, founder of the Exponential Review, on why we shouldn't count out megacities. We're going to hear from the venture capitalist Albert Wenger on a world after capital and why attention, the thing you're giving us now, attention, is the new scarce resource in the new economy that we live in. Before you hear from those great thinkers, and of course, Matthias Schrader, our special guest this week, I want to share my own vision of the Great Redesign, or at least one aspect of it. And that's a thought that taps into a fundamental aspect of how we shape the decades ahead. And in that way, I hope it lays the groundwork for some of the ideas that you're going to hear through this season. Because my thought fundamentally is about power. It's about how we humans need to come together and reclaim power over our shared future. Now, we all know that power is a necessary part of our lives. Unless you're an anarchist, you believe that it is necessary for there to be power in the world, for some people to have power over others. And without that, there'd just be chaos and it will be bad. But we also know that power in the 21st century, in the 2020s, who has it, how it's used, how it's expressed, all those things are changing. And that was true before the pandemic. It's happening in all kinds of ways. But there's one particularly important way. There's one particularly important new form of power that I just want to think about for a minute. And that is algorithmic power. Algorithmic power is a new form of power that is haunting ever more of our lives. And it does that in all kinds of interesting ways. So we all know that big tech, Facebook, Twitter, takes our personal data and it funnels it through algorithms and creates models of each of us that are used to predict our preferences and predict our future behaviors. So algorithms decide which products are suggested to you, which music is suggested to you, and so on. But it's not just about your consumption. Increasingly, algorithms are playing a part in the public space as well, and they're playing a part in government. Like right here in the UK, just a few months ago, there was a big scandal because the government tried to use an algorithm to decide the exam results of our school leavers. They couldn't take their exams because of the pandemic, so the government tried to give them their exam results using an algorithm. And what the algorithm ended up doing is upgrading students who went to expensive private schools and downgrading students who went to ordinary schools or lived in poorer areas. And there was a huge scandal about that, and they had to throw the algorithm away and start again. And that's just one tiny signal of what lies ahead. We're going to see algorithmic power and algorithmic decision making weaving its way through our lives in all kinds of interesting ways. And there's one big idea about algorithms that's become perhaps the most powerful idea about our shared future and about power recently. And this is the idea that algorithms will know us better than we know ourselves. Okay, it's been made popular by the superstar futurist Yuval Harari. He says we're going to move into a world where algorithms know us better than we know ourselves. And Yuval Harari thinks that that is a huge problem, because he thinks in that world, people will be tempted to hand ever more of their decision making over to algorithms. And he thinks that in the end, they'll hand over the most important decision that we in democratic societies take to algorithms. They'll hand over their vote to algorithms. They'll think this algorithm knows me and my life and my preferences even better than I know them myself. So why should I vote? Why don't I let an algorithm vote on my behalf? Or even better, why don't I let an algorithm be the leader and make the decisions? Why don't we let algorithms run our government? So this is a very powerful vision of a kind of tech-fueled future that's become very popular recently. And Harari thinks this could be a fatal challenge to liberal democracy. He thinks there may be no answer to this challenge, but I think there is an answer. I think there is an answer. And to establish that answer, we just have to look very quickly at what we mean when we say algorithms will know us better than we know ourselves. And really what we mean is algorithms will know our likes, our dislikes, our interests, our purchasing history, our listening history on Spotify, our online behaviors, and they'll use that to create models of us that are very successful when it comes to predicting our future behavior. Okay, so why then in that world should you not let an algorithm vote on your behalf? There is an answer to the question. And the answer is because you have a vision of the collective good, of a good for all of us, for all people, that is more than simply a collection of your preferences and your likes and your dislikes as you've expressed them on the internet. Okay, an authentic political vision is more than just a set of likes and dislikes. It has to be informed by a true ethical vision of the human good life and what is good for human beings. And that kind of vision transcends the kind of likes and dislikes and preferences that you are able to express online. Sometimes you have a vision of the good life, of what is good for human beings. That means you have to do things that are not among your preferences, things that are difficult, things that are maybe dangerous, things that feel painful. You know, they might be part of your ethical vision of what you need to do to make a better life for all of us. Okay? That is the answer to the challenge of algorithmic power. The reason this idea of algorithms knowing us better than we know ourselves feels so powerful at the moment is because we lack those kinds of visions of the good life. We lack those ethical visions of what human beings are and how they should live their lives. Okay, and we need to create those visions anew. We need to create compelling new narratives of our future and of the kind of future that human beings should live in. And those kinds of visions, no algorithm can understand them. No algorithm can process them. And they're not simply to do with your likes, your dislikes, your preferences. They transcend that. They're higher than that. Only human beings can make those visions and understand those visions. So that's what we need. And I hope that's something of what we'll hear about in this season. And I really think it is. What are human beings? What is the good life for a human being and a collection of human beings? And how do we create compelling visions and stories of how we move towards that? That will mean new kinds of lives for us, new kinds of culture, new kinds of business. New kinds of business for all of us, new kinds of business for you, because businesses and business professionals have to play a role in creating these visions. And that is, I'm sure, part of what we're going to hear about from our guests. So that is more than enough from me. I'm going to hand over to Monique to introduce our amazing special guest.
Thank you, David. I mean, this is not a sharing of an idea. This is a sermon. This is a lecture. This is a, advice to all of us. Thank you so much. Very inspiring. Who are we going to talk to? Of course, we're going to talk to Matthias Schrader, who is not only the co-editor of the book, but also leading Accenture Interactive in Germany, Austria and Switzerland. And since the early 80s, he has specialized in the world of technology and internet. And during this time, the whole industry has experienced so much change and development, which he not only witnessed, he also called it. He called it early and then informed his clients and the people he worked with where to go. So together with consultants, designers, developers, and strategists, Matthias mainly supports the big German companies in the development of digital products. So like big German companies, telecom, automobile, so forth. He also founded the Next conference in 2006. The reason why we are all here. And within a few years, the conference established itself as a leading conference for digital transformation in Germany. Matthias, so good to have you here.
Thanks for having me here.
Excellent. The time for the usual rounds of innovation theater with design thinking workshops and feel-good seminars is over. Only a radical attitude and rebellion against the status quo will rescue us. Ooh, big words.
Yeah.
What do we need rescuing from? What happened that we need to be rescued? And this is about more than just that we live in an age of a global pandemic, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. And to explain what I mean with this, maybe a quick explanation of my personal history, because when I founded Schrader 25 years ago, for example, Bertelsmann had a market share of over 50% in the search engine market, with Fireball, Lycos, Europe, and all these stuff. And Larry Page and Sergey Brin were still going to university. And the Ottos and Quelles in Germany, they dominated the mail order business, but also the e-commerce segment in these early days of the web in Europe. So, and in addition to this, we have also an entire internet software ecosystem with OpenOffice, for example, with Adobe CMS, Hybris, Intershop. And what's not known in the mainstream, I think that all these companies came from German founders, and now all it's gone. So it's the pandemic. It's not a new thing that we see that we have a digital lockdown. In my point of view, we have in Germany especially a lockdown since 20 years. So we de-invested in digital. So
you can say in the beginning, when there was big enthusiasm and there were a lot of European homegrown companies making use of the internet, after the dot-com bubble, we sort of retreated and we let the Americans take over.
Yes, so we always thought too small in Europe. So and it's still true, unfortunately, that today entrepreneurs have to go into the States to be internationally successful, like Tobias Lütke with Shopify.
I didn't even know it was a German entrepreneur. There you go. But yes. That's a huge company, right? Sort of the white-labeled Amazon services for shops.
Yes, but when you look at, for example, the e-commerce segment, so we have Intershop, and now Intershop, it's Salesforce Commerce. Yeah, we have SAP Hybris, that's from German founder teams. We have something like Spryker, you may know, and a lot of other things, commerce tools, and so on. So we are the leading e-commerce ecosystem on the global standpoint here in Germany, but we think too small, and so the big companies in the US they buy these knowledge, these IP, and then they make it successful. And I think that's the point to think more radically.
I think, my feeling is that things are looking up a little bit, in the sense that not only are there a lot of European companies building parts of the bigger ecosystem, so they're being taken over and become part of the American companies, but you now have, some unicorns, the unicorns of European background, huge companies that are coming up. And it was just a research that came out that said as of October 2020, we have 5 times the value of the biggest companies that we had a few years ago. And we have companies like Adyen, Delivery Hero, Klarna, Spotify, Ocado, HelloFresh, Takeaway.com, Zalando, and also BioNTech. Germany is saving the whole wide world, right? So things seem to be looking up, and maybe I'm too optimistic here. I have the feeling that this global pandemic has sort of given us a renewed value for both science and thinking about the public good, about society. And then if you think those through, that means you have more digitally, technically, scientifically advanced workforces. You have more feeling that companies have a role to play in society and not just make money. So I have a feeling that these new values that now are coming up could be very interesting also for Europe, right? Because Europe has something going on there. What do
absolutely? So when you look to Europe, so we have no shortage of capital or talent, and what you mentioned is absolutely true. I think we have a USP in Europe. So we are currently talking a lot about diversity, for example, and we have the gift of cultural diversity across Europe. And I think that's very valuable. And when we put all these ingredients together with the right energy, the right attitude, we can be very optimistic.
Is Accenture itself a diverse company? Is it because you run Accenture for all these German-speaking countries. How do you handle diversity within your company?
Yeah, two sides. So from the gender perspective, it's a diversity-driven company. I would say our CEO, Julie Sweet, she's a woman, and I would say that half of her leadership team is a woman. So from the gender perspective, it's very diverse. We're very diverse when you look to our global footprint. It's North America, it's Europe, it's Asia. But of course, we have always challenges because we are also, especially in Interactive, we grow also not only organically, also with acquisitions like Matthias Schrader 3 years ago. And then you have the challenge that most of the acquisitions you bought in the past are founded by males. And these kind of cultures is of course there in the first and second generation of founders, and so it needs a time to go more diverse in the gender perspective. But the other point, I think it's more to look at the same time the cultural diversity. We have the cultural diversity in Europe, but also when you look in Accenture, we have the technology people, we have the consulting people, but we have also the agency people.
Yeah,
and these are also completely the creative people, and they're also very diverse. And you have to build a platform where all these different cultures can be work together and to build fruitful and variable
quite a challenge, but a good one to take on. Now let's go back to this idea of the great redesign. I mean, you say also in the book, but also separately, we need a more radical attitude to be successful in the country, and there's going to be a lot of changes needed. What areas of life need to change to, establish a new energy in the digital field?
Yeah, I would say it's obviously that the pandemic has changed a lot of the ways we behave, especially how we work or consume. For example, the smartphone has become the universal remote control for our lives. And what does not take place on this 5-inch screen does not take place at all. So here's also undergoing a complete redesign of many areas. So some parts are only accelerating in their change, for example, the transformation of retail. But I believe others are experiencing a completely new form, for example, remote work, remote meetings, business, and so on. But to be honest, I don't think that we can really judge today many of the consequences because they overlay and it's not easy to separate them. It's only an acceleration, or it's only a thing that is an overlay effect, I would say.
Now, apart from all these changes that are sorely needed and for which you need all kinds of different people in society, whether it's mobility or education or government, you have, of course, always been someone who calls a new tech trend early. If it's computers or mobile or data or social media. So what is the trend right now? I mean, what is the tech trend that makes you feel, okay, this is going to be so big, I need to get my clients on this train because this is going to be too important to miss out on? And then really from a tech point of view.
I would say when we look to the GAFAs, then I would say one observation is that two of them are different than the other two. For example, Amazon and Apple, what they do is that they merge software and hardware, so they build appliances. So when we look, for example, to Amazon, it's half a software platform, it's half physical logistics. And when we look, for example, to Apple, it's now half software, iOS, macOS, Big Sur, and so on, and the App Store on the other side. But At the same point, they go very deep in hardware. So when you look to the Apple Silicon, it's now the fastest and the most powerful CPU in the market. So they outperform Intel now. So and that's completely crazy when you think about it. So and to bring software and hardware together, that needs time. It's a decade project. So when you look, for example, to startups, you always say startup, it's all about the bi-weekly sprint, it's agile and it's fast and so on. That's not true. Every startup that is very successful has a decade of a roadmap, and then after 7 or 10 years, then the startup is successfully. And when you go into the enterprise world, then you think that they are more conservative and they are slow, but they are with their change of the C-level board, with their internal reorgs and so on. They are faster than the startups in reorg themselves, but they have not the decade-long vision to build these software and hardware things together. I think that's remarkable.
So would you say that the software-hardware combination, or the software property combination, or the software, the combination of software with something else that base the software is something to really look into? Is that?
Yes, absolutely. That's a perfect lock-in, but it needs time. That's when you look at in automotive, the OEM say we build a car OS, for example, for the next 2 years. That's bullshit. It needs years and years to build these kind of appliances. But then it's a very robust lock-in. And we see at the same time that the old software platforms like the Facebook and Twitter, they are vulnerable. So when we look, for example, in the US, what we see is that they take actions against fake news. So, and then overnight there are new social networks and new bubbles. So I think without hardware, we have a problem in the future.
Okay, very interesting. I'm wondering if there are questions from the audience, because if not, I'm going to. Oh, there are some questions here. David, you are going to be with me to answer some questions. I actually also wanted a question that I missed in your talk so far, which David touched upon, is the whole new field of machine learning and AI. I mean, this is going to be enormously effectful on many of your clients' services and companies. Is this something that you are looking into as one of those fields where you have to combine hardware, software, or?
Yes, of course. I think that's a super interesting field, but I think that's more. I think, from my point of view, that's more commodity. That's so the AI algorithm that depends on the data. We have also the roadmap and the wave to go into the cloud and all these things, but that differentiate not our clients and the services. I think the hard thing is always how to differentiate the services and the products for our clients, the whole experience, and this is not a cloud or an AI-based thing. So we have to do more to be here different.
There is a question from the audience. One big thing the audience is interested in is your advice on how to think big. I think this comes from maybe a founder or someone who would like to.
I would say try to think big in Europe, but the best thing is to try to raise 10 times more money than you think you need. So we all hear that there are big bets that fail. That's true. But there are infinite numbers of small and mid-sized bets that failed. No one hear about this. So it's the probability to win with big money. It's much higher than with mid-size budget. So my advice is, when you think you need 1 million, try to get 20 or 30. So and that's also a good litmus test for your idea and for the market, because when you handle and manage and have the conversation with people that have the power to share and to give 20, 30, 40, 50 million, they are more smarter than the people that have only 1 million.
Oh, that's a good reason. I would also want to add that I think there's something truly interesting happening right now, that there are more and more companies with a completely remote workforce, where this whole question of Europe versus US doesn't matter anymore. The people working in these companies are all over the place, and you establish one little unit in the US to get a lot of money from there, but you actually your clients are all over the world as well. So it's not so much Europe versus US as it was in the past.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. But you need a footprint in the US.
That's true. That's unfortunately true. David, are there more questions, or do you have very special questions for Matthias?
Indeed, I do, because I think we are running out of time, but there is one very special thing that we need to do before we wrap up this show. It is time for the comeback of the world famous Next World segment. So let's roll the credit. Okay, Matthias, imagine this. Let me paint a picture for you. It is the near future. There has been a crisis on Earth, even worse than this one. And in that crisis, a crack team of technologists have hatched a daring plan to start a new chapter for humanity. They're going to travel with 1,000 specially selected people far beyond the solar system to the planet Next One. And at that planet, they will establish a new permanent home for human beings, for humanity. Matthias Schrader, thanks to your outstanding achievements in the field of business and entrepreneurship, you have been chosen to be among those first 1,000 pioneers to travel to Next One. Before you undertake your journey, there's just one thing you have to do, and that is answer 5 special questions. So let's see question number 1. Name one luxury physical object. One luxury physical object that you would take to your new home on Next One.
So I love to hear music. So I would fight for my hi-fi streaming player with active studio loudspeakers from Genelec. They're very expensive, very luxury, but I love it.
I think that's a great choice because it's going to be a long trip. You need something to listen to. Okay, let's see question 2. Which book should everyone read before they board the spacecraft to Next One?
Yeah, that's very easy, but a bit boring. I would suggest Amadeus from Yuval Harari.
Excellent choice. It's a fascinating book, and then you could have a debate about whether you think it's right or not. I think that would keep you busy on the way. Question number 3. Name one exceptional person who should qualify to be among the first 1,000 pioneers to go with you to Next One.
I would choose Sarah Silverman. Also, in the next world, we are still humans and we need humor and people who address social taboos and our white spaces and hold up a mirror to us.
Yes, excellent choice. I think some humor is going to be needed because it will be a hard journey. Okay, let's see question number 4. Create one law that bans something from Next One forever.
Unfortunately, we are humans, and I think we can't change our humans' behavior in the next 10,000 years. But what we can change our tools. So I would ban weapons.
Excellent choice. I love it. Okay, question number 5. Name one tradition from planet Earth that should be replicated on Next One.
So a tradition that we have almost forgotten in our light-polluted cities is to watch the stars and enjoy space. So we should rediscover this tradition also on Earth, but of course also on our trip to Next One.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, reconnect with the universe, and hopefully that will lead to a spiritual reawakening. Okay, you've answered your 5 questions. Thank you so much, Matthias. You are now ready to board the craft. Have a great journey. I hope you get to take your music with you and Sarah Silverman with you if she agrees to go. But we are now running out of time. So, Una, I'm going to hand over to you to wrap up.
Thank you so much for this great conversation and also for your talk, David. It was really interesting. Many interesting questions there. Thank you so much. Next time we welcome Thomas Müller on our next stage, not the German soccer player, but Fjord's managing director. He also contributed to the Great Redesign book, and we are very much looking forward to meeting him. And now, as promised, I would love to give away one or more books. The only thing you have to do is to tell me here in the chat which book you would take to Planet Next One. So let me know and I'll send you a copy. So thanks a lot for watching today. I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know what you thought. Also, thank you to the team behind the scenes, Renee, Merle, and Juliana. And of course, to our partners, Accenture Interactive, Factor 3, our media partner, T3N, and our live streaming partner, 23. A lot of threes there. But if you happen to be interested in a partnership, you don't necessarily have to have a 3 in your brand name. So hope to see you in our next show. And don't forget to let me know about your favorite book.